What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Tripple Rich. I'm back like Benjamin Button, and today it's the first episode of 2025. So I want to say Happy New Year to everyone out there. Hope everyone had safe and fun holidays. Today is the 25th episode. How fitting. So instead of talking about one shoe today, we're going to cover two. We're going to talk about Huarache Technology, which means we're going to talk about the Nike Air Huarache. And then we're going to talk about the Nike Flight Huarache. So without further ado, I missed you. I know you missed me. So let's go! So before we really start talking about the history and the detail of Nike Huaraches, first, I got to drop off some fun facts, right? First fun fact. Did you know that the name Huarache actually derives from an ancient Mexican/Aztec slipper? Wild, right? Secondly, did you know that because of a water skiing trip, that's how the whole idea of Nike Huaraches came to be? I know, right? Third and finally, did you know that if it wasn't for the New York City Marathon, we may never have gotten Huaraches on our feet? It's crazy. Now, let's talk about the details and the history of the Nike Air Huarache. It was originally created in 1991 by none other than, you guessed it, Tinker Hatfield. He got this idea for the shoe during a water skiing trip. And if you're not familiar with water skiing, it involves a boat, a rope, you and some skis, and you hang on for dear life. When Tinker put his foot into the boot, he remarked at the materials. If you're familiar with scuba suits, that neoprene technology, it's light, it's form-fitting, but it has structure. So he said, how can I implement this into a sneaker? So he went home and he started sketching. He came up with a sketch and he showed it to a good friend of his, Sandy Bodecker. You may know that name Sandy because he ended up creating the Nike SB line. Rest in peace to him, he passed away a couple years ago. We'll have to talk about him another time. Anyway, Sandy saw the sketch and he gave the sketch back to Tinker with a note. On that note, it said, "Sneakers of the Gods." Basically, what he saw was, with the sketch, he could see Greek gods such as Zeus and Hermes and all those other people wearing these shoes. So with that idea in mind, Tinker started to research the history of sandals. He ended up finding this ancient Mexican sandal worn by the Aztecs and the Mayans. They called this shoe the Huarache, and it was used to work in fields as well as take long walks. So he said, okay, I'm going to go with that name. So he had the name, he had the idea, and it was time to make samples. Now that Tinker had the design down and the name down, it was time to sell the samples. And when he was making the samples, he was adamant that this design was so forward-thinking that nobody else but Nike could come out with something like this. So he didn't find it necessary to put Nike all over the shoe, whether it be the word or the check. Well, because of that decision, the shoe was met with mixed reviews. Essentially, when it was time to start selling early to the retailers to show them what was in the future, only 50 pairs of the shoe were sold. A lot of them didn't believe that without the Nike branding that the shoe would do well. That was an immediate blow to this design's future. But luckily, there was a man in the Nike marketing sector named Tom Hartke who also loved the shoe. So he took a big risk and he filled out an order for 5,000 Huaraches. He took these shoes to New York City at the Times Square Pavilion while they were setting up for the New York City Marathon. He was able to sell all 5,000 pairs in under 48 hours. And the legend grew from there. Most people who bought the shoe were either running in the marathon that weekend or just runners or people who were going to test out the shoe anyway. The overwhelming feedback said that everyone loved how the shoe felt. They loved the sock-like technology and how it literally hugged the foot. Well, Nike, as smart as they are, took a hold of that momentum and created an amazing ad campaign. And the ad campaign said, "Have you hugged your foot today?" It's such a strange sentence, but it just creates curiosity to the viewer. And you want to try the shoe on. You want to see how it hugs the foot. The next catalyst after that amazing ad campaign was the media. In media, you had the two biggest sitcoms of that time in the 90s, Seinfeld and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Seinfeld, you had the main character, Jerry Seinfeld, wearing these Huaraches, and in Fresh Prince, you had the main character, Will Smith, wearing these Huaraches. Now the shoe went from a hardcore runner's technology to a fashion statement. And once it became a fashion statement, you can only imagine how much more it increased the glow up. Nike is quoted as saying within 6 months, they went from 0 Huaraches sold to 500,000 Huaraches sold. This shoe right here is the Nike Flight Huarache, not to be confused with the original Nike Air Huarache. This shoe came out the year following the success of the Nike Air Huarache in 1992. This was also created by Tinker Hatfield, but he brought on Eric Avar, who would eventually also be an amazing Nike designer and a legend in his own right. Essentially, they wanted the same motif as they used for the Nike Air Huarache, which was to make the shoe as light as possible, to hug your foot, and not to weigh you down, to give the athlete as much movement and freedom as possible. I personally think that this design is maybe even more polarizing than the original runner. There's just something about this hole in the ankle that to me communicates through design language that we're going to give you everything you need in a basketball shoe, but nothing more. Have you ever heard of the Fab Five? It was a group of 5 freshmen playing for the University of Michigan's basketball team in the early 90s. They were a force on the court, but it was more than just being good at basketball. They also had the swag. They were gangster. They were hip hop. It was the early 90s. They were sporting crazy fades with cuts like Nas. Just think of Nas's haircuts and basketball players like put together. Besides them being good, they also were wearing super cool sneakers. They were always wearing the cutting edge sneakers. And they, to me, are responsible for making this shoe legendary. What also made the shoe more legendary is that they were wearing these sneakers even though they didn't match their jerseys. If you're familiar with the University of Michigan, they're gold and blue. They were wearing purple and black Huaraches. So it just made the shoe more polarizing, and it made you just curious, like, what are they wearing? Why are they wearing that? And eventually you would probably come to wanting a pair. Besides the Fab Five making the shoe legendary, you also had NBA legends wearing the shoe at the time as well. The two that come to mind are Reggie Miller and Scottie Pippen, both in the Hall of Fame. So you can tell that this shoe is just a part of basketball royalty. After Nike had made waves in basketball and in running using Nike Huarache technology, they decided we got to keep pushing the limit. So they created a cross-trainer Huarache. Then they made a tennis Huarache specifically for Andre Agassi. Then they made an ACG Huarache, which is ACG is their outdoor line, outdoor hiking. They created the Nike Air Moab using the Huarache technology. They also used the Huarache technology in Jordans. In the Jordan 7, this was the first time you saw the technology show up, but it wouldn't be the last. I believe the 8 and the 9 also had the Huarache sock-like tech in it as well. Now let's fast forward to the early 2000s. This shoe got a blast from the past when Kobe Bryant was seen wearing it on the NBA courts. It was just a perfect storm. Essentially, Kobe Bryant was in between his Adidas sneaker deal and his Nike sneaker deal. So while he was in limbo, they called him a sneaker free agent, which meant he could wear whatever shoe he wanted. Well, he really took advantage of this opportunity, and he wore Iversons, he wore Air Force Ones, he wore Jordans, and as I said, he wore these. He had these in a home and away version, a white version, a black version, and it was just inspiring to see on the court because I think it gave people that nostalgia of seeing this on the Fab Five? Well, Nike did eventually sign him to a deal. But while they were creating his first signature shoe, they gave him the updated version of the Huarache flights. They gave him the Huarache 2K4 and the Huarache 2K5. Both were amazing basketball shoes, but really the highlight of the bunch is the Huarache 2K4. What's ironic about the Huarache 2K4 is that it was created by Eric Avar. If you remember, Eric Avar was helping tinker to create this creation, but when it came time to create the Huarache 2K4, now he was leading the pack. So that was special to see from a historical standpoint. But most people who were hooping in the early 2000s loved the Huarache 2K4. They wanted their hands on them. And even to this day, you have hoopers who are probably being more nostalgic than not, saying that Huarache 2K4 is one of the best basketball shoes they ever played in. I'm one of those people. Now is the part of the show where I get to share some of my memories about Nike Huarache Technology. First off, I have so much love for this Nike Flight Huarache. I wore this during my freshman year of high school, played a lot of basketball in them. I wore them till there were holes in them. And no, not the holes they came with. Holes in the toe area. I just love the shoe. I had a simple black, silver, and white pair. The colorway was simple, but the design is so funky that it did a lot of talking. I also remember getting my first pair of Scream Green Huaraches. I believe I found them in a thrift store, and I wore them to pieces. Such a comfortable shoe. Some of the other Huarache tech we've mentioned, I've had Jordan 7s. Raptors are my favorite colorway of that shoe. Wearing Jordan 8s, wearing Jordan 9s, wearing the Nike Moabs. I just have all these memories of the Nike Huarache tech and how it just forms to the foot. It's very comfortable. If you haven't tried it, you need to. So what are your favorite memories with wearing Nike Huarache Technology? Do you have favorites? Do you think they're ugly? Are you trying to get a pair soon? Does it bring back memories? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait for you to share. As always, please like, subscribe, tell your friends. It means a lot to me. But anyway, this TikTok is over. Episode 25 is in the books. It's been a pleasure to share, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. I'm going to keep working on getting better at this, and I know you're going to keep working on getting better at whatever it is that you do. So until next time, it's TikTok, and we're out.